After the long and bloody first part of the human saga, which saw our ancestors fight for daily survival and narrowly escape extinction, a revolution took place. One that would completely transform humanity and its impact on the world and set us on the path of global domination. Enabled by the agricultural revolution, the mud from the rivers and the surrounding fruitful plains gave birth to the first farming settlements that grew into cities and powerful kingdoms led by warriors and priest kings. What started out as modest communities on the Mesopotamian plains, the cradle of civilization, would soon take root in other places like Egypt, ancient China, and the Indus River Valley, sparking human innovation and ambition on a new scale. The agricultural revolution was not a war or a regime change, but rather a period in time over which people developed farming skills that allowed them to grow food and settle in one place. The surplus of food, in turn, allowed people to specialize, creating new jobs, and begin to develop new scientific and cultural advancements that grew increasingly more sophisticated. Mesopotamia, which means the land between the rivers in Greek, is primarily situated in modern-day Iraq and lies in the plains between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Its favorable climate and the mighty rivers allowed people to settle year-round and, with the use of clay provided by the rivers, create the first mud brick cities like Uruk, Ur, and Babylon. Towering over these cities were the ziggurats, large step-shaped holy temples to the gods. The Mesopotamians weren't just bricklayers either. The advent of new jobs and sciences brought about endless technological and cultural improvements that improved people's lives and what society could achieve as a whole. Ingenious new inventions like the wheel, the plow, and, most importantly, writing all took shape in Mesopotamia. Cuneiform, the oldest known writing system, began as images pressed into wet clay tablets with wooden sticks, but rapidly evolved into a system of wedge-shaped symbols. At first, it was used to keep track of the sheep and grain supply. Soon, though, it evolved to let people capture their thoughts and stories in writing. The world's oldest recorded story and song, the Epic of Gilgamesh, originated here and told a story about a great hero king called Gilgamesh. Another ancient Mesopotamian king, and a real one at that, whose name still rings millennia after his death, was Hammurabi. Hammurabi's code is one of the oldest and most detailed ancient codes of law that shows just how sophisticated their society was becoming. Some of his laws even persist to this day as proverbs such as eye for an eye. Hammurabi's laws were brutal but also very detailed, covering wages, theft, marriage, and many other aspects of Mesopotamian life. Interestingly, if the courts couldn't decide on a case, the case was put to the river gods to decide on. The accused party had to swim across the river, and if they drowned, they were considered guilty. If they survived, the accuser was put to death instead. Speaking of the gods, the Mesopotamians were deeply religious and oftentimes even terrified of their gods. They were polytheistic, believing in many gods, and had one for almost everything. They had gods for the sun, the moon, the rivers, the trees, and even beer. They believed that they were created to serve their gods and did everything to please them because if the gods were angry, floods, droughts, or worse would follow. Though Mesopotamia led the charge, other civilizations were rising too. The Nile in Africa gave birth to Egypt, whose pharaohs built eternal pyramids and created one of the most recognizable civilizations in history. The Indus River Valley in modern-day Pakistan and India had advanced cities with grid layouts and plumbing, though we still can't read their script. Meanwhile, the ancient Chinese along the Yellow River were reading oracle bones and learning how to create silk. Each of these civilizations had their own flavor, but they all started near major rivers, depended on farming, and began systems that would shape the world for thousands of years. The first civilizations were far from perfect, plagued by wars, floods, and their fair share of harsh laws. They did, however, give us the foundations of life as we know it: writing, cities, math, government, and myth. From simple mud bricks to Egypt's epic pyramids, the ancient world was messy, scary, and absolutely brilliant. So the next time you write something down or look down at your watch, just remember, it all started in the land between the rivers.